Hey everybody, it's Karen Hutton, and you asked, I listened. As a result, I'm going to take you through this photo from beginning to end, from where it started to where it ended up, and sort of show you what happened on each layer, what my thinking was, how a photo can transform, or at least how mine do, from where they start to my ultimate vision. So here we go. So as you can see, this is Shark Fin Cove in the Santa Cruz area near Davenport, California. And there it is. So where it started, however, was back here. Boom. Actually, it started there. It was very, very rough and kind of wild that day. And normally I might do some HDR to capture all the light, but it was late in the day, getting towards sunset. And I gotta hanker in to try my Eclipse, Genistech Eclipse, it's a 2 to 8 stop ND filter. So this little Eclipse screws on, and it's really easy to use. And then, you got 8 stops to play with. So I liked that here because it was just so wild and so booming and blustery. I thought, wow, there's actually enough action on a long exposure to get some kind of misty stuff going on, maybe a little mystery, a little suggested action in the water, which is always a little bit more mysterious than actually showing it. And it was a little out of my norm, out of my, comfort zone, so I wanted to give it a shot. I did a number of exposures because there was some color up here in the sky, but not a lot, as you can see. And so what I did was I pulled in a darker photo. This is darker. I think I'm coming in here having done a color fill layer. I'll explain that in a minute. But I did that because this area right here is a different photo's sky. And, as you can see, in fact, I will zoom it in so that you can see, it's not perfect. My little blending was not a perfect little science. And sometimes it's easier than others. I think I kind of left, I was able to blend the previous photo here. And part of how I got that to more or less line up color-wise and tone-wise was to essentially on this layer I did this. I'll just show you so briefly. I brought in a solid color, and I usually use black, and I will use a blending mode, soft light, and it'll do that. So there's the light, there's the dark. So I did that and used that idea to balance the tones. I'm going to get rid of that now. Between these two, the sky and this. So anyway, so this is where we ended up. Then, because there was this color beginning to bloom and blossom, and the way the light, reflects off these rocks, they get really golden. I didn't know if it would develop later or not. And you see, in my world, I just make the image that I want to see. So I don't worry too much about, was it really there? Because frankly, I really don't care. This was here. But in terms of my color, my tones, my treatment, the vision behind it and the feeling I want to get across from it, because I know how I want my viewers to feel. I know how I want to feel when I look at this photo. As you can see over here, I went into Nik software again and chose the skylight filter, which does that. So there you go. Brightened it up. It began to look like a possible sunset. Next layer was a duplicate. So as you can see, it still says skylight filter, and really nothing changed. Some of what I do is destructive, meaning sometimes I'm working right on the photo, and then other times, like Nik software adds a layer, so it's never destructive. But I like to make a habit of just duplicating my layers so that I can do things like this. Go back and show you this is what I did. So next, I made some kind of little adjustment down here. Let's take a closer look. Like I say, and you'll find this too, when you're working on things on a given day, certain adjustments occur to you, and then you go back a few days later and you're like, why did I do that? I don't know. And this is one of those moments. I have no idea why I did this. Unless I just couldn't get this to match and line up that day. I've had other days where I come back and I've had so much trouble with a piece, a section, and I come back and the next day it's like, no, it's a breeze. So I don't worry too much about it, you know. So that day, that was the adjustment I made there. And I also got rid of these guys. I didn't like them poking up. I also didn't like all of this, but I gave it a shot trying to clone stamp all of this out, and it really didn't go well because the gradation of tones and colors all in here just, wow, it was really hard to match. These guys worked out okay, and you see, you know, in the same frame that this went away, these guys went away. This next one I used Viveza. Actually, I didn't use Viveza. I went in, I decided after, I don't know, spending way too much time trying to keep this all, you know, the same proportion and clone stamp this out because I just didn't like it, even though it's foreground, but it was annoying me. I decided the way to go was with a warp tool. I'll show you really briefly what a warp tool does, and I'm making a liar of myself because I said I wouldn't do this, but I'm going to do this. Edit, transform, warp. You get this kind of grid. And what it allows you to do, see how the arrow, you know, this little arrow, is stretch it around. Sometimes it's just sort of fun to go do. All right, enough of that. So I did a little stretchy thing here to get rid of that, which of course changes the proportion of the rest of the photo, but who cares? Because really, there's no comparison. It's not about A-B. It's really, this is an artistic impression. So I wanted to get rid of that. So I'm going to escape out of that and show you where that ended up, which is there. This layer here is a copy, because like I say, I like to duplicate things. And because now I wanted to have more light. I like to play with light. So basically what I did was this brush, I have a brush tool going on. I use on a Mac, it's Alt Option, and I touch right there, which creates that color. And I also, I'm not so sure about this brush. Let's do an angled brush. This is angled. I don't know if this is a good idea or not. We'll try it. And I also want it to be a little bit, so what I'm doing here is I hold Control Option. I'm using a Mac, as I said before. So Control Option, press my, I'm using a Wacom, so I'm pressing my pen down. But if I run this down, it gets very sharp around the edge, and I go up and it feathers. If I go left, it gets smaller, right, it gets larger. The other way to do it is with your, you can get smaller by pressing that bracket, left bracket, bigger by pressing the right bracket. Smaller, bigger. Okay, so those are two ways to make the size of your brush smaller or bigger. So here we go. I'm going to press Shift again. So I just, and there, and then I let go of the Shift and come back up here again. And I just kind of keep bringing this in, as you see, at 35% opacity. It's a lot. So I'm just doing it boldly so you can see it. And I'm just kind of making this, I'm just imagining how the light would come in, how it would strike this area. And so you see I'm directing the light. Now I'm going to get rid of this layer because now you'll understand why you see the light there. So I think I used a much lower opacity, like probably 7 or 8%, and just kind of kept at it in different sizes. I'd make my brush bigger and smaller and, you know, lighter and so on and so forth, and just brought it into the cove so that it's just very gently caressing the, you know, and blending with the mists that are already playing there. And the reason for this layer mask, I'm going to disable it so that you can see that, of course, it covered the rock too, which I didn't want it to do because I was imagining the source of it being further over this way. You can't see my finger pointing, but that it's not kind of back off my shoulder. It's off there in the distance, so it wouldn't shine directly on this rock. It would come in more from the far side of it. So I'll re-enable it, brushing out this section of it, it allows the light to come in under the rock. And the truth is I let a little of it dribble over because light isn't that precise. It does kind of dust the edges and so on and so forth. So I wasn't like super precise. I just tried to imagine how the light would come in. And then I came in, I created a layer down here, a new layer. And with this new layer, again used my brush, only this time I chose like a white or, a similar tone as the water. And on maybe 2%, I just brushed it in here because I wanted to bring that effect of the splashing water misting out up higher. I didn't just want it kind of sticking down low. I wanted to mix it up and make it a little more bubbly and frothy. So that's what I did there. Went into Viveza because I like this, the way the way the water comes down. And I wanted it to stand out a little bit more. So I used Viveza to sharpen it, add structure to it, and brighten it. And as you can see, off in this area too, I did a little, adding of structure. Let's put it that way. Then I went, it's getting there. I kind of like it, but it's a little too pastel. There's nothing really kind of, I don't want to say it's not popping because it's popping plenty, but I wanted more contrast. I wanted more depth. I wanted a little more of the darker tones. Now that I had the balance of, everything where I wanted it, now I want to deepen it. So I go into Perfect Effects and did a few things to clear it up. Things that are make for a little more contrast, a little more detail, pops the color a little bit. There's a few things I use in Perfect Effects, which if I make a breakout video for you, I can show you some of that. But there's a few steps. But essentially, that's what happens is I get the light placed where I want it. I make sure there's nothing too dark or too light or just too, and then go in and start tuning that up, which is what that is. So I just use Viveza to alter the color. So Viveza allows you to use this control point. So if I touch that, you can see the pointer changes, and then I place it there and it creates this circle with all of these adjustments, and you can make the circle bigger or smaller, and it's going to adjust all the colors, color blue that are that color within that. So if I want to change it, like I want to make it warmer, I can do that. If I want to take the warmth out and make it really blue, I can do that. And I can make these same adjustments with these sliders. I just don't have as good a control over them. So then I went again into Nik software and did the darken, lighten center. And I lightened the center a little bit. It really has to do with where you're drawing the viewer's attention. So as I toggle back and forth here, you can see the difference. I didn't like the one thing I did, if you notice over here on the layer mask, you see that I brushed this out. It's because, I'll show you what happened. If I disable this layer mask, you see this got dark again. I had just fixed it over here, and I liked that. That's as dark as I wanted it, and then it got darker. So I just used my layer mask to brush out the effect of the dark and light and center, and only have it affect the parts of the photo I wanted it to. So there you go. So then what had happened, I sat there and I looked at it and toggled back and forth when I was all done after this layer, and then decided, doggone it, this got too dark and this got too dark. So I just went back into Viveza and just, again, tweaked these areas till I was happier. So now I'm just really fine-tuning. This still wasn't happy, clearly. So I used Viveza again and said, this is altogether too dark. This is altogether too dark. Let's just lighten it up. So I did that there, and then finished it up by going. Now see, today I look at it and I'm like, it doesn't really bother me how dark this is at all. I actually kind of like that. But that day, I did that. I made it a little bit mistier. I brought the mists in a little bit more. So I was having fun with that. I guess I wasn't done playing, because I figured, this is splashy and misted up, and this splashes and mists up and the mist is creeping and it's all very mysterious. So yeah, I got all into it that day. So that's where I ended up. I could make up more adjustments, but there comes a point where you got to go, enough is enough. So there you have it. That's this photo, and hope you enjoyed it. Hope it helped. Hope you learned something. And we'll do more of this. Take care. Have fun. Take lots of pictures. Bye.